Hey everybody, this is Donnie Davis at Georgia State University, and I wanted to give a brief update on some of the projects of the HAPPI Lab. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to the members of the HAPPI Lab team. Here are the folks who are currently living in Atlanta. Curleen and I recently got the good news that we were both promoted to full professor, so we're both really excited. But once again, this leaves us both thinking about what do we want to do with our lives now that we've kind of done some of the things that are required by the university to progress. I had a similar process when I was promoted to associate professor, and a lot of my energy went to aligning my energy teaching and in other roles with my creative work, my writing and research. So the kinds of questions I find myself asking are something like, what's worth doing, and how does my research potentially complement some of the things that I think are worth doing, not just with my career, but also with my life? So the first grant that I want to describe is a large grant on intellectual humility. $6.6 million, 3.5 of that is going to go to other projects that are adopting a similar aim, and then we have 3 internal projects. So I would invite you to visit our website if you want to learn more about that. In a recent special issue we did, asking a variety of people to kind of weigh in on some of the challenges of a transition to applied work. Something that became very clear is that there are some cultural issues to consider, and in particular, we need to think more about the role of power in the process of trying to practice humility. So on this slide, I have some initial thinking about what it might take for the use of humility language to promote trust versus another type of virtue language where we end up getting in power struggles and it actually makes conflict worse. So if anyone wants to kind of see some initial thinking about that, I put a few links in the slide deck about our thinking, but we're wanting to develop an entire research program that explores some of these tensions. In the larger grant that we wrote, one of the ways that we got at this tension is by contextualizing intellectual humility to situations where a person already has some sort of commitment, and so there are a certain set of commitment-related biases that might make intellectual humility more difficult. Okay, we're moving quick. The second project that I wanted to talk about that's going through the stress center, and it's also part of the HAPPI Lab, is we have a study in New Zealand that includes a now 13-year longitudinal study. So we have 13 waves of data. Somewhere around 5 years ago, Dr. Rice and I were asked to help inform some of the measures that were put in, especially around humility, gratitude, and forgiveness, and also perfectionism. And so the main thing I wanted to say here is a big part of our role is to help people in the U.S. or other parts of the world to, if they were interested in writing off this data or writing grants that would make use of this data, our team is trying to make that easier for people to kind of navigate and figure out how to do. So if you're interested in some of the constructs that I mentioned or want to learn more about this data set, just send me an email. So to kind of summarize the last couple of projects, what I started to look for post-tenure were projects that would allow me to continue to develop expertise in scale development. I looked for projects where there would be high external validity in terms of the results would matter. It's not just kind of a dinky effect that may not matter in many situations and may not have many implications. But I also wanted to start to look for data sets where I could learn more about increasing rigor for causal inference. And, we don't want to just know about correlation. We're often asking questions about how things work, which requires us to understand mechanisms and causality. So I'm really excited about those two projects, and those are getting a lot of my primary focus and energy. But I also wanted to describe a larger shift that's happening with me and therefore has implications for my team and what we're investing in. So one of the ways to kind of give a sense of this, I started a page on my Substack for kind of a book club, and I'm going to start just kind of keeping notes of some of the things that we're reading, and also have a place for people to recommend things that might be related. So on this slide, I gave some of the books that I've been reading that have influenced how I'm thinking about the next phase of our lab and what might be worth doing. And I would say the common thread across these different projects, feel free to look at kind of my notes once I kind of put those up. But all of these books at some level are talking about what does it look like to have positive institutions and to invest in the health of those institutions. And part of what can give us as scholars a sense of meaning and purpose is to commit to the good of those systems, to embed ourselves and kind of grow deep roots, and do what we can to promote healthy relationships and healthy processes within those systems. And sometimes that involves needing to have the courage to step up and do things that may be hard or difficult, and you may not initially get lots of positive feedback, because we all know that systems are kind of perfectly designed to stay just like they are, and there's a lot of resistance when anyone tries to kind of move things in any direction. The transition that I'm in is allowing me to take a longer term perspective. I listened to a really good podcast the other day that was questioning the idea of impact. Impact is, kind of a metaphor of doing something that would cause a lot of change over a short period of time. And this author and speaker, Andy Crouch, was saying, well, maybe we actually need to think about changes that might be slower but would hold up longer. And so the metaphor that came to mind for me was thinking about the Grand Canyon. It's over the course of years and years and years where this river has, kind of caused a change in the land that's permanent and also beautiful. And so a lot of my thinking pre-tenure was, what can I do within 3 to 5 years? But now I'm starting to think, what would be worth doing that might make a longer term impact? So one example of this, Mike McCullough and I are working on a project called SCORE, the Social Consequences of Religion, and that's exactly what we're asking the program officers involved have the ability to think about a longer funding span. 10 years is the span that we're thinking about in this project, but there's some potential that would even get extended. And so we're asking what would make a difference now that would give value that 30 years from now, we would be glad that we had made certain investments. Another project that I'm really excited about, it's in partnership with a grant at Stetson University, but we're focused on how to integrate cultural humility and multicultural orientation into skills training. This is an area where we've known for a long time that there's a gap, and so I've heard a lot of conversations that didn't necessarily go anywhere about how we need more in this skills area, but it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of progress. So we're trying out some new things. We're experimenting, and one of the things we're trying out is to shift, instead of it being top down, where people who are supposed to be experts kind of try to develop content. We're trying to create a process where we get lots of people involved, including lots of students, and we're asking people, what are situations as you're getting ready to enter practice and enter practice independently that you are experiencing questions or doubts or potentially cultural discomfort or cultural countertransference. And we're starting to create video content that can be integrated into teaching or supervision structures. So this is really exciting, and one of the things that I've been encouraged by is how much energy and initiative there is around the project. I've never found it so easy to kind of create partners and get people involved, which has been really encouraging. So another project that I'm excited about, Jesse Owen and Steve Sandage are the PIs, and Elise Choi is just finishing up a postdoc and moving into a staff line at Boston University with the Danielson Clinic with Steve Sandage. But the purpose of this whole project was how do we increase the integration of positive psychology into the day-to-day practices of psychotherapy. And we just kind of finished the final meeting for that, and it was really encouraging just to see the progress that had been made. So teams from a variety of theoretical orientations grappled with the questions about where character strengths and virtue, especially relational virtues of forgiveness, gratitude, and humility, where those would fit into the process of psychotherapy. And this team really grappled with questions about what does it mean, what does it look like to focus on these relational virtues in a way that's going to be helpful and that doesn't potentially cause problems related to a lack of cultural sensitivity, or something that came up was something like virtue bypass, where there's kind of pressure from the system to practice virtue in a way that's actually not healthy and that kind of bypasses a healthy emotional process. So this is a really encouraging project. Another direction that I'm just now starting to explore, but if you wanted to see someone who's been doing this kind of work for a long time, Christy Gordon at the University of Tennessee has developed partnerships within the community to help churches or other organizations promote couple enrichment. And so as a counseling psychologist, I find this really interesting, and it's really the kind of work that I would see myself wanting to promote in the future, is how do we, instead of kind of an idea of cultural competence that's very individualistic, and we're kind of hoping that other people will come to us and ask us for our sage advice, what would it look like if we reversed the flow of that and we treated people within communities as the experts? We tried to activate their strengths and support what they're doing and bring any expertise that we have to just offer to help and offer to help them develop structures that will work within their different systems. So I'm really excited about this. I think it could make a big difference, particularly in churches related to issues like mental health stigma. I think it's possible that making progress in issues related to like racial disparities might require this kind of strategy where instead of hoping that one day we'll have more trust as an institution, we just partner with institutions that already have high levels of trust, and that might be a better way for us to kind of optimize our trust with communities, is to kind of partner and really reverse the flow. The last more expansive direction that I want to describe is a Life Worth Living grant. So Sally Lee, first year doctoral student in the lab, we wrote a course grant, and the idea was to integrate some of the content from this Life Worth Living course at Yale, which is a humanities course, and it's kind of a complement, kind of a critique of positive psychology. We want to integrate some of those ideas into our positive psych course, but more broadly, one of the things that we're starting to do is integrate clinical trials into our positive psych course. So when people go through the course, part of what they'll do is they'll do a intervention on forgiveness or an intervention on gratitude or intellectual humility, and we're using this as kind of a structure to try out some of our new intervention work. And so I'm really encouraged and excited to not only think about some of what some people call like third wave positive psychology, so kind of a more culturally sensitive and kind of global approach to thinking about positive psych that might have higher generalizability around the world. I really like some of those conversations, and I'd like to integrate some of those critiques into our approach of developing interventions, particularly in the areas that we study, such as humility, forgiveness, and gratitude. So I put a few pictures up of some of our collaborators still working with my mentor, Everett Worthington. I'm wanting to do some gratitude work with Joel Wong, and also Stacy McElroy's helping us with some of the intellectual humility intervention work. So this is a kind of final area where I see us doing a lot of work and trying to build structures. So that was kind of a flash tour of some of our priorities as a team. If you'd like to be involved, I put a link. This is just a Google form where you can indicate your interest in hearing more, and we're interested in connecting with people at all levels and various sorts of activity. We're particularly interested in finding ways to partner with each other to make it easier to kind of traverse some of the early career transitions, things like grant writing, sharing data, high quality data, providing high quality methodology skills and mentoring to learn new analyses, sharing resources around psychoeducation, and doing some of that kind of work within community organizations. And we're interested in connecting with people at all levels. Undergraduates, we have a doctoral preparation track, kind of a pipeline program within our master's program. We obviously have a lot of doctoral students working within the team, and that's counseling psych and counselor education, where I mentor doc students. And then we also have some postdoc funding if there was a good fit. So to bring things to a close, I think the main thing that I would want to leave people with, I wanted to put out some signal that I am really wanting to partner with other people who have a passion and heart for making it easier for early career professionals to kind of navigate those first 10 years. The challenges involved can be actually fun and encouraging and exciting. They can be really confidence building when we have the supports that we need and when we feel like we're doing it within strong relationships and strong community. And it can also feel very isolating and lonely if we don't feel like we have other people that we can talk to about what we're experiencing, and people who can help us understand how to do it the smart way and not the hard way. So I really do hope that anyone who's taken the time to listen to this presentation, I hope you'll reach out and connect, and we can share ideas about what it might look like if our teams kind of work together to promote that kind of positive and creative environment for our students.